The Space Derby. I was 8 years old, stepping out of the public restroom at the park. The midday sun hit my face, the air filled with the cheers of Cub Scouts and parents watching wooden rockets zip down their fishing lines. The Space Derby was in full swing. But here, just outside the bathroom, it was quiet. That's when he stepped in front of me. A kid. Older than me, maybe 12, maybe not. Bigger, for sure. His face was blank, his stance easy, but his hand moved fast. Thick fingers wrapped around my throat, pressing against my windpipe. "Give me $5. I didn't have $5. I didn't have anything. I tried to shake my head, tried to speak, but his grip tightened. The sounds of the derby faded behind the pounding in my ears. My fingers found my pocket. Not for money. For something else. The knife. My dad had given it to me, small, sharp, always in my pocket, like a piece of him was with me. I flicked it open and drove the blade into his side. A rush of power surged through me, pure electric. Pleasure, sharp and raw, like I had unlocked something hidden inside me. He let go, stumbling backward, his hands clutching at his ribs, his eyes wide in shock. I felt it then, how easy it had been, how simple. I could have kept going. I could have driven the blade into him again. And again. And again. If he hadn't stopped, if he hadn't run, I could have killed him. I knew that. I felt it in my bones. It was truly exhilarating. But he did run. I stood there, heart pounding, staring at the red drops on the pavement. My hands shook as I wiped the knife on my pants and shoved it back into my pocket. Then I turned and found my dad. I told him everything. He didn't say a word, just grabbed my wrist and walked me back to the bathroom. We stood there under the bright sun, staring at the blood drying on the ground. His eyes scanned the crowd, searching, but the kid was gone. Without looking at me, he held out his hand. "Give me the knife." I hesitated, then handed it over. He flipped it open, inspected the blade, then snapped it shut. I never saw it again. He took me into the bathroom and cleaned me up. We both remained silent. We didn't talk about it. Not then. Not after. I still had 3 more races left to finish. I lined up with the other scouts, my wooden rocket poised on the wire. My hands were still unsteady, my breath shallow, but when they gave the signal, I let it fly. I finished the last 3 races, each easier than the last as a calmness emerged. The final result: first place. Someone handed me the trophy, solid and golden, the weight of it grounding me. I smiled for the pictures, shook hands, and stood tall. No one knew. No one saw the blood that had been on my hands just minutes before. The applause rang in my ears, but it felt distant, unreal. I looked at the trophy in my hands, the bright reflection of the sun glaring off its surface. I imagined the blade still slick with blood, imagined the kid still running, still afraid. When we got home, my dad took me into the garage to put our stuff away. The light buzzed above us, casting shadows over the workbench, the derby kits, the old tools lining the walls. The air smelled like oil and sawdust, grounding me in the familiar, but something felt different now. He shut the door behind us, the sound heavier than usual. That's when he finally spoke. "You don't tell anyone about this." Then came the first hit, a hard punch to my shoulder, enough to make my arm go numb. The second was a backhand to the face, whipping my head to the side. I tasted copper but didn't cry. And then, in the silence that followed, I saw it. That quiet pride in his eyes. He was proud of me. Proud that I had handled myself. That I had won, both in the park and at the derby. But there had to be consequences. There always had to be consequences. I just nodded. He walked inside. I stood there for a while, staring at the workbench, feeling the ghost of his hand, the phantom weight of the knife. I never spoke about it again. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see the kid's face. The shock, the fear, the terror, the way he ran. And I wonder if he ever told anyone either. At night, when I lie in bed, I replay it in my mind. The grip on my throat, the weight of the knife, the feeling of steel sinking into flesh, the thrill of power, the absolute certainty that I could have done worse, could have done more, and the quiet part of me that wonders, not with guilt, not with fear, but with something darker, what it would have felt like if I had.